Honestly, I think you should start this one and sort of like level with the audience because, as far as gaming journalism goes, the only thing that I have to say is basically an incessant stream of invectives. Honestly.
It's a good stream of invectives. The truth is that recently there seems to have been an increasingly critical eye drawn not towards the people who make games, but gamers. It's almost as though that the journalism that ostensibly was meant to exist for us suddenly has been turned on us. Most notably, the obvious issue that has sparked a lot of this is the recent talk of Anita Sarkeesian. A lot of... Yeah, I can just hear you gearing up back there. Calm down, boy. The Matador isn't out yet. Basically, there's been an awful lot of white knighting, in spite of the fact that there is a lot of evidence to suggest that this is not quite as honest as it suggests it is, that it is actually a sort of a scam, something that clearly hasn't been very well researched. The numbers just do not add up.
Right.
And yet, journalists, instead of looking at this critically and saying, we support feminism, but we're curious as to what's going on here, a lot of the journalism is outright saying Anita is fighting a war against stupid fanboy gamers, who are, of course, the people who pay their shit.
I'm sorry, I just had to pull a Kevin Spacey.
That was wonderful. That was CCS's first musical number. I'm reminded of the wrong song from Scrubs,
Oh, good old Dr. Cox. But yeah, in regards to Anita, here's an interesting thing, because I saw this not too long ago, like about a week ago. Jordan, who's basically ex-Busy Street, ex-DHI, he currently runs a vlog show called Hess's Office, and about like a week ago, he dedicated an episode to the issue of basically sexism in video games, or just rather, women in video games in general. And of course, whether he wanted it or not, he had to discuss Anita Sarkeesian, obviously. And when discussing her, he said something that, on the one hand, was kind of obvious and rather self-explanatory, but on the other hand, kind of took me by surprise, because I believe he was the only person to point this out. And without mincing words, what he said was that basically Anita was a feminist, or rather Anita is a feminist, and therefore she is presenting the feminist viewpoint.
Yes, absolutely.
And the reason why it took me by surprise is that, well, duh, that's obvious. She self-identifies as a feminist. She runs a channel called Feminist Frequency, and yet the reason why it gave me what made me pause for a second was because I don't think anyone actually pointed it out, that it was just Anita's point of view, that this was this one person presenting a subjective, a little bit biased, a little bit agenda-driven view on video games. Because what happened instead was all these journalists, Destructoid, Kotaku, Jim Sterling, Bob Chipman, the list goes on and on and on. Instead of saying, well, here's this person presenting an interesting take on the issue of sexism, and maybe we need to listen to what she says, but do take this with a grain of salt because they have an agenda behind this, which would have been fair enough with me. Instead, this person was basically canonized. She was extolled, and instead of offering a different outlook on the issue of sexism, these people were basically going, please, 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 people, I implore you, heed to what this woman is saying, because she is the Messiah that has come to rectify the wrongs, and finally someone has taken a stand against the misogyny and the sexism and the patriarchy and the boys club that is video games. Heed to what she is saying. For she has brought us the gospel. She is, telling us the truth. And everyone who is against her, everyone who dares to open their dirty, misogynistic, chauvinistic mouth is just a troll. I hate her.
All they need now is to push her over some water and frown when she doesn't, walk across it. I mean, you're absolutely correct. It's crazy that it's been so biased, but people don't pick up on that.
Right.
And the argument that I've seen bandied around against that from her supporters is that, what do you mean that there's no discourse? You're commenting on a video where there is discourse. You're providing discourse by making that comment. And what I want to say to them is that, no, you don't understand. It's not that the argument doesn't exist and that there aren't people responding to her. It does
exist.
It does exist. It's that you wouldn't know it if you're not paying attention to it because it's not promoted anywhere. Anita is promoted everywhere. Anita is the one that we see, in the news articles and in the videos and at the TEDx talks, which are, by the way, not the real TED Talks, for those of you who still think that it was TED that brought her on.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who are responding to her aren't getting any notice for it. There's no balance in this debate, and that's what baffles me the most, that I haven't seen a single piece of paid journalism that has bothered to look at the investigative journalism argument, or the Thunderfoot argument, or hell, even the argument of the balance guy who I showed you, which is Tool Time, or even Extra Credits, who have done a reasonably balanced look at it in the past. These people just don't get any recognition, and that's the issue. It's not that the argument doesn't exist, it's that Anita's made it so that it doesn't look like it exists.
Precisely, and I think what incenses me the most is that I think this was someone who made a response video to Thunderfoot's critique of Tropes vs. Women episode 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever. And what I remember vividly was that this person, who was a woman by the way, even though she kinda sorta agreed with Thunderfoot's deconstruction of Anita's flawed argument, at the end she still kind of advocated for Anita because apparently she's the only voice that women have in this argument. Which I believe is total bullshit, by the way.
That is bullshit. That is, and that's insulting bullshit as well, because I've seen plenty of women who have said far more interesting things, on the state of gaming. I know women.
Kite Tales, Yudkimiya,
yes.
The list goes on and on and on.
Yes, absolutely. And the other thing is this idea that it somehow represents all women in the medium of gaming.
Thank you for bringing this up.
No, I was telling you and Twitter the other day, I did some numbers. See, the thing is that, I work on an animation course, and we work with some pretty big names. We have our films shown to Pixar and Disney and a lot of people in the industry. Aardman in particular, by the way. They're because obviously it's Britain and they're closest. We had both boys and girls pitch their films to us. These films, as I said, they'll get seen by the industry, they'll get into film festivals, etc.
Right.
And the numbers that I have are... there were 13 films that eventually got through. The first stretch, 8 of the 14 female animators chose to create male protagonists. One of them created a dog. So that's more than half of them who chose to not create female protagonists.
Mm-hmm.
Of the 15 boys who pitched, 1 created something genderless, 2 created couples, 2 created girls, 9 created male leads. So there was no sort of overall majority with the boys, really. And also I would like to add that a lot of those characters, unlike the girls' pitches, met with rather sticky ends. They didn't always get out of the situations as heroic characters. They were often made fun of. In the very final stretch, 13 films got through, 4 directors were female, 9 were male. And before you go shouting misogyny, there was a 50-50 split in the voters. 50% were boys, 50% were girls. And as I said in the post, meritocracy is the winner here, because people weren't voting for gender, they were voting for ideas, and people were creating for ideas, because we are not fucking robots. Whether or not there is a deeper psychological reason for why anybody did what they did is another matter that is not something that we can fight against or rail against, other than just, diversification in general, which happens naturally and has been happening naturally for the last decade or so. To shout misogyny as if these people were somehow mind-controlled, I think is incredibly insulting to the industry. And that's exactly what Anita's been doing. People will do what people do, and, by pointing out the misogyny, you're actually hurting the situation, especially with all the butthurt that you've created from the fanboys who are, completely opposed to the idea, now that you've, made it so prevalent a problem for them.
Precisely. I mean, I sincerely doubt that any of them were actually forced to create a male lead.
Absolutely not.
Because here's the thing, if we're gonna talk about that artists should have total freedom in creating what they want, then you have to accept the fact that, you know what, maybe these women will want to create a male protagonist. And the other way around, maybe males will want to write females, because otherwise what we have here is like, freedom of speech, I want freedom of speech as long as it suits me, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing here. It's like, we need more female writers, we need more female characters, but if said female writers don't write said female characters to fit their biased perspective, then somehow they're not true feminists or not true females, and therefore it doesn't count. And how can anyone swallow that kind of argument? Hook, line, and sinker is beyond me, to be honest.
No, I agree totally. I mean, this brings me straight back to the IO9 article, which I read the other day. This is a really big stinker with me. I got quite pissed about this. Basically, and this is kind of the beginning for me of when I started noticing the white knighting of journalism that's existed at the moment. I often frequent IO9, not because I agree with their liberal bias, as far as I'm concerned, but because they actually
You're
post...
a masochist?
Oh, I am indeed. Rob Bricken is there from Topless Robot, which is the main reason I went there. And the other reason is because they do genuinely post some really good stuff. They keep you up to date on what's happening. And even if it is a liberal bias, don't let anybody tell you, what you should and shouldn't read. You should read as broadly as you can on any bias, on any, anything constructive and anything destructive, so that you can make decisions for yourself and you can work out what you agree with and what you don't agree with. That's the power of the free press.
Right.
However, they did an article promoting a grant that had been released from... I don't think it was a massive grant or anything. I think this was just a small grant that was promoting the diversification of employment. That's fine. I have no problem with getting minorities or, considered minorities into the system of animation or anything else. I do agree.
Right. More people means more input, means more perspective,
absolutely,
means more diversity, etc.
Absolutely. However, I completely disagree with the notion that was set forth in the memo they created, which said we want to diversify, people because we feel that a bunch of straight white male people are sitting on their ivory towers and coming up with completely stale and stagnant shows, and we need to diversify those shows because they're not diversified enough. Yes, because, Legend of Korra doesn't exist, apparently. Legend of Korra, a show which praises the Eastern culture, which does extensive research into bringing the Eastern culture and the Western culture together, and has a female lead in its leading role. Whether or not it's very well written is, of course, another debate for another day. Written and created by two straight white male dudes. Or maybe they're not straight. Who knows? That's their business. Bottom line, it doesn't matter who you are. You could be white, black, Asian, purple, pink. I don't care. What matters is your ideas. It matters, how you are as a person, how you are as a creator. It doesn't matter what your background is or what you look like or what you do. And I really hate the counter-argument that, we need to diversify because we have too many straight white male wine drinkers up in there. And I think that's just such bullshit.
Exactly. I mean, not to draw a reverse racism card or anything, but... how come when a new group of people wants to join an already established industry or medium to add some variety or bring new ideas to the table, which, don't get me wrong, is a worthy cause indeed,
yeah,
how come they never simply say, look, we're equally as passionate about this medium as you are, and we believe that our contributions could improve it even further, so, how about we simply work together to make it even better? But no, instead it always has to be about tearing down the boys club or knocking white straight males off their ivory towers or pedestals. I mean, hell, first Anita does it, and now there are these bigots. And did these people ever stop and consider that maybe these evil, nefarious, narrow-minded white straight males that you despise so much were the ones to originally create and establish that industry that you like so much? I mean, I'm not saying that they should be the ones who have total creative control over this industry. I mean, no, we need more diverse people. We need fresh blood. We need new ideas. But, to come to the game at such a late stage and basically lambast the original founding fathers of the medium, that's, well, it's disrespectful and ignorant is what it is.
Yeah, it's like nobody is saying, don't support the other side, what about us? What people are saying is that you can't just, be such a massive hypocrite. If you want us to be understanding and accepting and allow more people in the industry, that's what we want to do. We're not looking to get this kind of challenge. And also, people are so good at forgetting provenance. The idea that it was a bunch of white straight dudes, and maybe they weren't straight, who knows, who cares, who created the 12 principles of animation, who created a lot of the stuff that inspired a lot of other people to go on and do stuff. The fact that we place such a superficial bent on where people come from and what they do, as opposed to their ideas and their merits, which is again the enemy of meritocracy by not doing that. It just absolutely baffles me, and it really gets me angry. And actually, it restricts a lot of people from getting into the industry, because companies, and this is a fact, companies believe that minorities will effectively cause them trouble, and so some of them feel that, well, you know what, if we don't hire that person in, then actually that could save us a lot of hassle. Case in point, Adriana Richards, is that her name?
You mean the dongle lady?
Yeah, the dongle lady.
Yep, Adriana Richards.
Adriana Richards, she got 2 guys fired, and they realised that instead of being a crusade and supporting her, they realised that actually that made her more expendable, because she lost them a bunch of guys they needed. So, they're just digging their own grave. There is a way to fight this, but this really isn't the way of doing it, So yes, I feel that both Anita and journalists are putting, it is a superficial emphasis. It really bugs me. And of course, because it's the morality thing, it's very difficult to try and get people who have a very sort of moral gravitas. They gravitate towards everything that seems like the righteous path to take. It's very difficult to try and argue critically with those people, because they don't want to engage with that. They want to engage through their heart and not their head, though they will probably tell you that it's their head.
They don't care about logic, they don't care about reason, they don't care about objectivity.
And then they argue that we're saying, well, think about the white guys. No, we're not saying that either. We're just saying...
I could not care less about whether the protagonist is white or black or Asian or any other race, because at the end of the day, all I care about are well-written stories, complex, likable characters, and maybe a little bit of depth if you're really good at storytelling.
And yet, the journalists keep coming in and they keep defending these points of view. It's almost as though all these journalists found a collective sort of dictionary that finally gave them words they didn't know before: patriarchy and misogyny and classism, sexism.
Well, actually, we have been sitting here lambasting these journalists for quite a long time, but let's try and sort of like put ourselves in their shoes. Let's try and analyze why exactly these people would back up these rather radical and sometimes biased points of view and present them as like the ultimate truth, something that needs to be universally accepted in order for, like we're talking about video games, the video game medium to evolve, to become an art form. Because, let's make this clear. Most of these people, they are intelligent people, they are educated people, and outside of the instances where they would side with Anita, they have written some intelligent articles, and yet when it comes to this, somehow, for whatever reason, all objectivity, all intelligence is immediately defenestrated. And here comes the emotional, think about the children, or in this case, think about the women. So why do you think they do it? How come they're turned from an intelligent, well, I don't want to say pioneer or something as lofty as that, but, as an intelligent person on the forefront of, say, video games, trying to push them forward as an art form, how come they're immediately, I guess they immediately switch teams when it comes to issues like sexism or misogyny, etc.?
I mean, Jeremy Clarkson once said on Grumpy Old Men, and he was a journalist for a long time, a motor journalist, I might add. He said, I used to get up in the week and I'd think, fuck, I've done fuck all for an entire week. What the hell do I write about? And then you notice that your dog's thrown up, and there's 1,000 words that you've got a column right there. How my dog threw up on the weekend. I feel exactly. This is the thing about journalism, that Actually, another little quote here from the same program I might add. Tom Stoppard, the famous playwright, also said that journalists believe that the most important thing about a story is that they've turned up to cover it. And it's this combination of the two ideas. The idea that news at the moment, because of the way our technology works, for them it's slow. Because their stuff takes effort and they put it out, and whether anyone sees it or not is another issue. On the other hand, they're very interested in boosting their own ego and their own presence. So the combination of those two ideas is to take a topic that's pretty popular, that's getting people riled, and make a lot of money or views off of it, and a lot of people who will come back and read their stuff as a result of it. And I wonder if the feminism thing has given them a new avenue of readers, a new way to pull people in outside of here are the new shots for MGS5, because it feels like they're using it as a crutch.
I do agree. Well, I'm a cynic, I'm a skeptic, so of course I do accept the theory that it's for monetary gain. Hey, Anita Sarkeesian is popular, so if we write about her and if we come up with these catchy titles like, Feminist Under Siege from misogynistic trolls, of course it's going to get lots of views, which evidently has happened.
Yeah.
However, in the light of all the information that has been unearthed by basically normal gamers, or normal people who actually did the journalists' work for them, all that information is there, and yet I can guarantee you that when Tropes versus Women episode 4, I think.
Only 4. Yeah, blimey.
Actually, no, it's episode 2 because the first one was split into 3 parts.
Oh, yes, it was. Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, once Tropes vs. Women 2 is released, Kotaku, Destructoid, Bob Chipman, Jim Sterling, all of those assholes, they'll be on the forefront pushing it forward. It's like, yes, she has returned, to spread the truth with us. Who cares if it's biased, who cares if it's inaccurate? And this is something that boggles my mind, is that with all this information available, if all they care about are views, how come no one has posted an article saying Anita Sarkeesian, the truth behind the scam or something? Because that would, that could be popular. Instead, it's only one-sided. For example, there was that video by, it's an absolutely abysmal, superfluous, and perfunctory channel, but I don't know if you even heard of it. It's called PBS Idea Channel.
Oh, yes, I have heard of that, funnily enough.
Right, and their most recent video is titled, Does GTA 5 prove that gamers need Anita Sarkeesian? And apparently they concluded that yes, because GTA 5 features strippers.
This is the same video that had a guy who didn't have any lenses in his glasses, so, I'm fucking serious. If you watch it again, he has got no lenses in his glasses because of the camera glare. Which says a lot,
It does. That's gotta be like, perma-hipster or... on the topic of GTA 5, let's move on to our good friend, Freddie
Wong. What a funny little man.
Question, had you even heard of him prior to this incident?
Yes, I had. The first time I heard of Freddie Wong, he made a video on how to get rid of, black bars on the side of your video, which was incredibly pointless. After that, yeah. Many years later, I heard of him because my sister laughed at a video he made called Pimp My Horse, which admittedly I laughed at the time. That was about 2 years ago, I think. And then I heard about him again when it came to this. I mean, a lot of people had spoken about him in the meantime at the site, but this was the first time he really sort of properly came to my attention. Considering the kind of humour Freddie Wong uses, considering who he is, considering what he plays, I think he's completely wrong in what he said about GTA. I don't really know. Aside the whole, the currency of feminism right now on the internet, I don't really know where it came from.
I don't think it really matters where it came from. I think what matters here is the fact that these people believe that these people who don't really have any kind of tangible connection to the video game industry, who have not really contributed anything to the current state of video game industry, basically any bum off the street can come in, pull out some extremely fallible statistic out of their ass and accuse video games of that and somehow expect video games to justify themselves to them, because
for
those of you who don't know, his exact Twitter post was something along the lines of, "My gut tells me that most GTA players tend to assault more female NPCs than males." I would and here comes the part that infuriates me the most. I would like to see the internet stutter and try to justify that. So here comes fucking Joe what's-his-face, right? Who has absolutely no established credentials, who has no connection to video games prior to this, was just an
calling out the internet.
Yeah, who's just an internet clown. You know, he pulls out a statistic literally out of his ass, says, "My gut tells me," and at the end of his post, has the audacity to demand that gamers, that people who like video games, that people who like the GTA series, somehow prove him wrong. You fucking idiot! That's not how it works! You don't come up with a conclusion and then demand that people give you the research.
Absolutely, that's the epitome of bad science.
I don't think that's even science. All it is basically, GTA 5 is popular. It's a bit controversial, so how can I leech off of this controversy,
Yes, absolutely. I mean, to be fair, we're talking about Anita ourselves. It's only because it's gotten to this level, and hopefully as a result people will have a listen. But it's the fact that it does feel like it's very deliberately reaching just to create some sort of shitstorm, because it's not, again, we have not heard of Freddie Wong outside of this, though I do know that he is quite famous on YouTube. He's not the kind of person I think who would normally stir up this kind of shit. Is it
unless it benefited him?
Yes, exactly.
So I think it's important to bring this up, but the reason why we chose this topic is because we feel that there is a glaring dissonance between normal people who enjoy video games and who also want to see them progress as an art form, and then you have the pseudo-intellectual game journalists who technically should be on the forefront of the medium, who should be defending it, who
should be supporting gamers, because it is their job to ferry information from the industry to the gamers.
And vice versa.
Yes, exactly. Not to become a bastion of power that just, glares down at gamers and tells them what they should think.
And I honestly think that's what happened. These people, due to their position, they got closer to game developers, and they basically receive gifts from them whenever they have to review a game. They receive special editions beforehand.
Yes.
So
investigative journalism did a fantastic video on this a long time ago.
Not to sound like a conspiracy nut, but
no, we know that it's true. That's the thing. We know that they get these gifts. Many people have come forward to say that this is the case.
In that case, I'm just gonna go ahead and say cronyism.
Yes,
that's what's going on. These people got closer to game developers, and it's this massive circle jerk where the game developers are aiming to please the reviewers, and the reviewers are aiming to please the game developers, and yet the general populace, it doesn't really have a voice. No one really cares for these people.
Absolutely. I would say to anyone who is serious about making a change in the industry and seeing if their ideas will work, instead of just yelling at people until they give you what you want, get off your ass. Find out what you need to do to break into the industry, and do what, if you really love doing it, find out if you can do that and go and do it. I may make critical videos on CCS, but I do not plan to make that my life, experience for until I'm 30 or whatever. My aim is to work within the industry, obviously be critical of the industry, but you have to change it from within as much as you attempt to change it from without. And to change it within does not mean to infiltrate and destroy the barriers that may be there. It's to learn the craft, learn what you're talking about. My perception of the animation industry, for example, is completely different to what it was 2 years ago when I was, sitting in my parents' house, fresh out of, sixth form. I'm not sure what that will mean to American listeners. not knowing what my next move was and thinking I knew what I could do. There is a huge difference from thinking that you know and actually knowing, you know. And if you call yourself a pop culture critic, no, that doesn't make it any better.
All right, unless you here, I don't want to dwell on her too much.
Nor do I.
the paradox of all of this is that I am so courageous, I am so brave for basically pulling a victim card. You know, how come no one sees the paradox in that, the oxymoron that's presented in front of us? Plus, I think, as an example of how there's this dissonance between the so-called game journalists and the game public, I want to bring up an incident that happened not too long ago, like last week. So, about a week ago, this lovely lady by the name of Holly Green, also known as Winner Uses Drugs on Twitter. As a side note, she is an online game journalist. So, out of the blue, and I have about a dozen people who can corroborate this, out of the freaking blue, she goes on this massive diatribe. She goes on how she is envious of her male colleagues because when they play a game, they can just enjoy it and forget about it, but when she plays it, she has to worry about the social implications. She has to carry it in her. You know, it's just this. I know. It's just this massive diatribe, like please pay attention to me type of attention whoring, and so naturally, lots of people, including our good friend Mute Kimiya. And yes, this is a free plug. Now make some new goddamn videos, woman.
She won't return my calls. Anyway.
So Mute Kimiya and a lot of other people, they rightfully called her out on her BS. And what Mute Kimiya said was something along the lines of, oh wow, this is such an important issue. So how are you going to solve it? Oh, that's right, bitch on Twitter. Which she did. So, what happens next is that after 2 or 3 additional tweets, she blocks her. She blocks Mid Kimiya, which is, you know, fine. If that's how you're gonna leave a discussion, just block the opposing views, just block the dissenters, silence them, because that's totally fair. Anyway, so you would think that it was the end of it, right? No, because then what this woman does is she pulls a Dan slot, and I'm pretty sure most people won't understand it, but you will.
Oh, I sure do.
And what she does is, first she starts spamming Mia's ask.fm account. That's basically a site where people can post questions and you'll respond them. And it's basically all these mean-spirited questions about, you know, how does it feel to be a shallow girl gamer sitting in your room with your chest exposed, blah, blah, blah. And to Mia's credit, she is taking... I know. Tweets like that, and to Mia's credit, she's taken it like a champ. She can see through her BS, and it's like, you know, troll harder, Winner uses drugs, right? She speaks out against this person. Moments later, her ask.fm stream gets clogged with a stream of invectives and mean-spirited messages. Anyway, so she ignores those, and what happens afterwards is that this Holly Green person goes to Mute Kimiya's YouTube account and starts leaving the same kind of mean-spirited messages on her videos. Again, it's like, oh, I can see you're doing so much for the industry, sitting in your bedroom with your tits exposed and blah blah blah, you're a typical girl gamer, etc. All of this in public view, you know, she's using her name, she's using her YouTube account, etc., etc. And unfortunately, or luckily, this did not go further because, you know, I guess Mia had better things to do than to argue with this crazy person.
I probably should have taken her advice.
But anywho, if this were to explode into something, right? If more people were aware of this, and more people spoke against this Holy Green person, and if she pulled Phil Fish and said, you know what, that's it, I can see that the patriarchy is oppressing me, blah blah blah, you're against me because I'm a woman, which is total bullshit, but whatever, I can guarantee that a week from that day, you know, Jim Sterling would have a Jimquisition video where he would speak out against the likes of Mute Kimiya, how they are the aggressors, how they harassed her, etc., etc. When all of this started with basically a Freddie Wong-esque type of rant on Twitter, like, woe be me, please pay attention to me, blah blah blah, help me white knights. I mean, These are the people standing on the forefront of the industry, right? I have a period, please run to my aid.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're acting like. That's what they're saying, that's what they're doing, and it's not only heavily contradictory, but also just a bit worrying as well, really, you know, the levels that they're going to. Well, I feel sorry for Mia, certainly, because I have been through that kind of behaviour before. I certainly didn't deal with it as well as she did, but you know what I mean. It's incredibly unprofessional to go around, you know, pursuing someone.
Just for having an opposing opinion.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, you're this... If you're a game journalist, or if you're a journalist of any kind, then first of all, you need to behave like a professional, and second of all, you're kind of representative of the industry, you know. Just like Adam Orth got his ass fired for being a supercilious douche, the same could, and, you know, I believe should happen to you if you're being a condescending twat. And yet somehow it's, like I said, it's just this dissonance between people who enjoy video games and who want to see them evolve, and then you got these pseudo-intellectuals that somehow got to the position of writing about video games for a living, and somehow they dictate what's best for everyone else, even if the general populace, you know, could not disagree more.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more, honestly. I think people don't realise the extent to which they're, you know, what was it Mundane Matt called it, the culture of outrage. I don't think people have really understood how far this has gone and how ridiculous it has gotten to helping free speech, to helping, you know, freedom of expression. And there was basically James Gunn, who is currently directing the new Guardians of the Galaxy movie, had to go, because he's now a part of Disney, to a Disney seminar where they discussed harassment and, you know, how to treat other people.
Right.
It's kind of a thing that they do because they're such a big company that the liabilities are huge. So in a sense, I can understand how we've gotten to that point. However, he explained that one of the things that they told them, can't believe I have to say this, was that prolonged staring at a person could be considered rape. I am totally fucking serious.
Wow, in which case, you know why I'm laughing so hard? You know those fucking mascots with their sturdy glares at Disneyland? Mickey Mouse is raping kids 24/7.
They are the ultimate rapists.